Actually, today I went back and re-listened to the first episode of the Cloister Room that we did, in which we talked about Series 5, and we did our basic broad thoughts on Series 5, because, I was just kind of interested to hear that.
Okay.
And, I noticed a couple things.
Okay.
One is that I have this, weird filter on our voices that really brings out the bass.
Okay.
The other is, that's really it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm glad you took the time to listen to that.
Also, we have inferior microphones, but we're edited much better. So. I'm Tom Dickinson.
And I'm Louis Midas.
And this is The Cloister Room,
a podcast about Doctor Who and other things.
But yeah, we were both very positive about Series 5, I think.
Yeah.
And about Matt Smith also.
Mm-hmm.
So where do we stand on Series 6?
Overall, I liked Series 6. I guess I seem to recall a lot of people not enjoying The Curse of the Black Spot, but I really liked that episode, and I continue to really like it even when I watched it again.
That's one thing I was going to ask, whether any episodes were better or worse on this this second watching of the whole season.
Well, I will admit that Closing Time I liked better this time.
Really?
Yes. I think it just needed another go-round to sort of sink in. Although, it did bring up an interesting... And I'm trying to remember if they actually addressed this at any point in The Wedding of River Song. I don't think they do. I'm a little confused why River had to be the one in the spacesuit.
Yeah, that is it's weird.
Because, basically, River was free. Free, I guess, you could, in air quotes. And they sort of just... I feel like they could have thrown anybody into a spacesuit at that point because the Doctor was content to fake his own death. And, it's not like he just kind of stood there and took it. You could have... I think she even says the suit was in control. And so I think that, the suit probably could have just done it on its own.
Or anyone could have been in there.
Right.
The one thing that I think sort of maybe explains that is that when the Doctor asks why it has to be in Utah, he asks Dorium. Dorium says that's because the place next to Lake Silencio is a still point in time, which makes it easier to create a fixed point in time, which sort of implies that there are certain things you need to do in order to create a fixed point in time. For some reason, River being there was a necessary part of that.
Yeah, I could see that. It could be a factor of her Time Lordiness. That might be something. Maybe Time Lords are able to create fixed points. Yeah, I'll buy that.
It may also be that the suit was specifically manufactured for Melody Pond, for the child.
True.
And that's something we sort of see in The Impossible Astronaut and Day of the Moon. So it may be that the suit wouldn't operate unless she was in there.
That's true. But then that brings up the question, why is the suit necessary to kill the Doctor?
I don't know.
Because they talk about, the Silence wanted a spacesuit, and so they made, America go to the moon. But why did they want a spacesuit?
Yeah, I find this is a general problem with Series 6. As I rewatched it, there were a lot of things that, I wouldn't say don't make sense, but aren't explained very well.
Right.
And I think you see that especially in the in the Stephen Moffat written episodes that tie into the story arc. And I think most especially in Impossible Astronaut, Day of the Moon, Good Man Goes to War, and not so much Let's Kill Hitler. I think everything's pretty solid there. But then again, in the Wedding River Song.
I guess I guess with the Wedding River Song, I really don't understand that little separate universe, or timeline, I guess you could say. Because I have to wonder if River, like River does not remember killing the Doctor. That's what the Doctor says, I think, right?
Yeah, I think he's wrong, though.
Oh, okay. Well, good. Then never mind. No, I was just going to say, if she doesn't remember killing the Doctor, then would she remember marrying him?
Well, clearly she does.
Well, okay, fair enough.
And, actually, that's another thing. We're sort of jumping all over the place here.
Yeah, okay.
But, which is fine with me.
Yeah, no.
We talked in our last episode about the weird things about, like, Amy's memory and why she remembers certain things at certain times, and at that point in that last scene in the end of the Wedding River Song, where is that supposed to take place in relation to everything else?
Right.
One thing I noticed is that in the scene in her office on the train where she has drawings all over the wall of their adventures?
Yes.
She has various Series 6 stuff on there.
Oh, does she?
Yeah, well, at the very least, she has the pirate stuff.
Oh, right.
It does seem to be mostly Series 5 stuff, but there is Series 6 stuff on there as well.
Once again, I'm forgetting the date. Was it April 22nd? Is that?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so if that whole universe were taking place on April 22nd, that would have been before the pirate stuff would have happened. So, but then, okay, I don't, all right.
Yeah, I think the correct response to that is to just give up on the notion that it's going to make sense. So, I mean, the chronology of the Amy's that we see is roughly equivalent to the chronology of, the episodes in the order they aired.
Right.
So, like, that Amy has those experiences of Series 6, and then, for whatever reason, the Amy at the end of the episode has all of the experiences we've seen Amy have so far. Regardless of the fact that's not explained in a way that makes sense.
It seems like Rory, I think at one point the Doctor asks Rory what he remembers, and he says that he can remember being the last Centurion at like random times.
Well, what he says is that it's like there's a door that he can open or close, which is interesting because that's the same metaphor that's used in Girl in the Fireplace.
Huh.
For when the Doctor and Renette are entering each other's memories.
Well, and I guess my point is that suggests that Rory too has the ability. Like, it's not just. I mean, I guess Amy has a perhaps specialer ability to remember previous timelines or such. But Rory seems to have that ability too, to some extent, and possibly all characters do.
Yeah, because Amy says it's not just her who notices that time has gone wrong. It's clear that even Winston Churchill has noticed to some extent. And obviously in that timeline, Rory has too, and that's why he's joined up with them.
Right.
Whereas I get the feeling that River in that timeline is completely aware.
Yeah. And I think that's explained when the Doctor talks about him and her being at the epicenter, or whatever he uses to describe it. But yeah.
Ground Zero, I think he says.
Yes, that's right.
But, this is all stuff that's just not explained very clearly.
Right.
I think another massively unclear thing to me is the role of Madame Kovarian, especially in relationship to the Silence and to the Headless Monks and to the Marines that are seen in A Good Man Goes to War, which I'm not entirely sure whether those are supposed to be the same organization as the clerics seen in Time of Angels and Flesh and Stone.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of weird. I mean, they certainly seem to be of this, I guess you could say, of the same cloth.
Yes.
But yeah, that is kind of not really explained very well. I don't know. And I mean, I don't know. I'm sure it'll never be addressed, but I'm not terribly bothered by that, I guess.
I am kind of bothered by it because when I watched A Good Man Goes to War, I think one of the reasons I liked it so much is because I just had this assumption that we were going to learn a lot more about these villains and the threat they pose, and maybe we still will. because Madame Kavarian is dead only in a timeline that no longer exists, and she may well still be alive in the proper timeline. But I feel like it might just not have been thought through that much.
Well, that's the thing is, it did throw a lot at us. I feel like it was a lot of different things that were just sort of thrown together as a kind of vehicle to get us to this point in the Melody Pond story, I guess. Mm-hmm. And I guess it seems kind of sloppy, just because it was so much that was not explained very well. And I guess I'm saying you're right to be bothered by it. But actually, I actually made a note to myself. When I was watching Day of the Moon is when the Doctor's captured or whatever. How did the U.S. government have this super dense alloy that blocks out all radio waves?
Well, it's Area 51.
But
they're keeping alien tech under wraps.
But that's what? Fine.
Well, that's what Area 51 is.
Just a bunch of zero-balanced dwarf star alloy.
Well, the popular mythology surrounding Area 51 is that the government is it's like the U.S. government's version of Torchwood.
Okay, but
that's never said in the episode. I think they just kind of assume you're going to know that.
Okay, fine.
But yeah, I do agree a lot with what you call the sloppiness. I think there's just a lot of really sloppy slop. And I think underneath that, there's a real intelligence to the storytelling in this season. It's really character driven, much more I think than Series 5. Mm-hmm. And it's very focused on the relationships between these four characters and what they mean to each other, what the Doctor means to people in general. I think there's a really cool theme that I spotted more watching these episodes in quick succession from A Good Man Goes to War through the rest of the season about who the Doctor is, the effect that he has on the universe, the effect he has on the people he meets, and it really sort of that comes to this sort of climax in the Wedding of River Song that in a way that I think is pretty clever and intelligent. It's just a little unfortunate that it's done in a way that is, I think, sloppy.
Yeah, no, I see that, and I do know what you mean. I think that I got that kind of sense too. That that a lot of it was focused on people who had encounters with the Doctor, and even with Craig, who had had an adventure, I guess you could say, with the Doctor just in the last series, and the effect that had on his life. I do think it was a large sort of... But yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that is something that's pretty cool. And I mean, obviously the Doctor has had an effect on a lot of people's lives in both the context of the show and also viewers of the show. So there you go.
Yeah, and I think that was actually a big thing when Doctor Who was brought back, because this is something I've never really thought about in this way until recently, because I started watching with the new series. But I think one of the big differences between the new series and the classic series is that in the new series the Doctor is famous. And I think that's because the show in the real world is sort of famous and had this effect on the people who are writing it. But in the classic series, the Doctor is, for the most part, not famous. He'll sometimes meet people who have met him before or who have heard of him. But in the new series, from Christopher Eccleston on, we're always being told about the legend of the Doctor and people who've had their lives touched by the Doctor and how it's spread throughout the universe. And twice now, we've had series finales, and I'm thinking of Series 3 and Series 5, in which the Doctor is completely defeated or wiped out, and then he's brought back by the power of the stories about the Doctor. Like in Series 3, Martha spreads the Doctor's story, and that sort of revitalizes him. And in Series 5, he's erased from existence, and he's brought back by the story. And so the Doctor is famous and his story is famous, but it seems to me, and we'll see how much follow through this gets, but at the end of Series 6, Stephen Moffat sort of tries to wipe that slate clean.
Yeah, because basically the whole universe thinks he's dead now, or dead
Right.
then. I don't know.
Time travel.
Right. But yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what where they'll take the show from here. I mean, I actually think it'll be interesting to see this new... it's not a new universe, but it's a new era where the Doctor is going to be sort of underground again, I guess. I think that'll be really interesting to see where they go with this.
Well, I'm hoping they do follow through on it.
Yeah.
And don't just sort of, forget it and then go back to the same.
It certainly seems like the way The Wedding of River Song ends, it seems like Amy and Rory are going to... And I don't remember if we've actually found out if Amy and Karen and Arthur are going to be back for the next season. But it certainly seems like they're going to be... Now that they know he's alive, they're going to be looking for him. Or at least that's what I would imagine would happen. Or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that they're going to be back in some capacity, but we don't know exactly what that is. And the entirety of the last 2 years have been very focused on those characters, so
Right.
It's kind of hard for me to imagine what Stephen Moffat's Doctor Who is without those characters.
Right.
But there was a time when it was kind of hard for me to imagine what Russell T Davies' Doctor Who was without Rose, and then Martha came on the scene, and it was kind of, I don't know, I'm not sure how I feel about Martha as a character still, but it was kind of a breath of fresh air to have something a little bit different going on, and so I think it might be cool to see new characters, even if we're not completely shoving Amy and Rory out the door, which I hope we're not.
Right. Well, and I guess if Amy and Rory weren't to come back as main companions, it would sort of fit in with what Stephen Moffat said about making the next season very not serialized, because then they wouldn't have the same, companions week after week, I guess, which I guess could be a thing. I mean, to me, it would be very reminiscent of the year off, I guess, where they did the bunch of specials leading up to the end of time.
Oh, you mean no consistent companion?
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows?
Oh, well, yes, actually, that's what I was thinking, was that there would be no consistent companion as opposed to a new companion. That's where I was going with that. My head went there. I didn't actually vocalize that.
I think I would probably like that, because I feel like some of the best stuff that Matt Smith has been able to do is when Amy and Rory were sort of out of the picture and he was with a different character. Like you had Craig, you had the father from Night Terrors,
right.
You had the Christmas Carol with Kazran Sardik, and I mean, I've enjoyed that, and I think seeing them do something a little bit more like the David Tennant year off. I mean, I don't want the show to go away, but
right,
that would be cool. I do also think, though, it would be interesting to see another new companion who's going to be more consistent,
right,
and sort of be the tell a new story that's going to be maybe less serialized, but still serialized-ish.
Right. I mean, I guess we don't really know. I mean, I guess we never really know, but we don't know at all where they're going in terms of storytelling. I mean, I guess at the end of Series 5, we didn't really know where the story was going to go, but we sort of knew that there were these unsolved questions, mostly with regard to the TARDIS, being drawn off and exploding, which arguably we didn't really get answers for, but we kind of did, or at least we can make assumptions.
Yeah, it's another instance of the sloppiness, I think.
Yeah. But we really don't have that here. We don't have any sort of...
We do, though.
Like
we
what?
have the fields of Trenzalore.
Oh.
The question Doctor Who.
Well, okay, I guess we do.
We don't know that that's going to be, next year, but it's definitely sort of on the horizon, and I would have to assume that Stephen Moffat is headed there in some respect.
Well, that's true. Okay, never mind.
And I do think, we've got the 50th anniversary ahead of us.
Right.
That's 2 years down the line. There's kind of an assumption, I think, that, that's going to be a big story that will perhaps be the end for Moffat and Smith, both. Last year in our Series 5 review, we talked about Matt Smith, and I think we were both in agreement that we would be happy to see him continue as the Doctor forever. Mm-hmm. Do we still feel that way?
At points I was thinking that it would be nice to see someone new. But no, I think I do want to keep seeing him forever and ever.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I said back then, I'd be happy to watch him for another 10 years. That's what I said a year ago.
Okay.
I don't want him to stay for just another 9 years now. No, I kid. I mean, obviously, eventually someone else is going to play the Doctor.
Right.
But there was a time, but by the time we found out that David Tennant was leaving, I was of the opinion that, I enjoyed David Tennant, but I'm excited to see what's next. Mm-hmm. I'm definitely not at that point yet for Matt Smith, and I was a little distressed the other day when I read an interview where he mentioned that he's doing, quote-unquote, another year of Doctor Who. So that made me a little upset.
I do think that, I mean, if someone, announced, tomorrow that, Matt Smith's going to be replaced after X number of years, I think if they said, all right, this is going to be the last series with Matt Smith, I think I'd be upset. I just don't think I'm ready to let him go. He has to keep playing the Doctor.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I just think that his Doctor is so interesting and just so... it's just, I mean, I know that, everyone says this, but I think he really embodies the Doctor, and just, everything he does is just so Doctor-ish. I don't know, I feel like it would be a very, I feel very sorry for whoever will eventually take over the role, because they have a lot to live up to.
Well, that's what everyone said when David Tennant left.
Oh, well, that's true.
And I think Matt Smith just actually keeps getting better, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. I think there's more layers, and in this season he's had more opportunities to do more interesting things, I think, with the Doctor. Particularly, I think he in the scenes where he's dying in Let's Kill Hitler, the scenes, there's some pretty great stuff in the Wedding River Song. There's some great stuff in the God Complex. Mm-hmm. It's just, I think I would like to see him continue to do that.
Yeah.
And continue to expand the character. And, eventually as an actor, I assume that you would get bored with that.
Right.
I still don't see a point in the future where I am tired of Matt Smith. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see that for me either.
So, no major opinion changes on this second viewing?
No, not really.
I think I liked Curse of the Black Spot less.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think I liked it significantly less.
Okay.
Yeah, but that was the only thing. I think every other episode in the series I enjoyed a lot.
Yeah. Well, and every time I see The Doctor's Wife, I enjoy it. Perhaps more and more. I think it's just a really, really solid episode, and a really interesting take on the TARDIS too. And so, I just can't think of any episode. I mean, I could see how the Curse of the Black Spot is. I would say it probably is my least favorite episode of the season, even though I still do like it a lot.
I was going to ask best and worst.
Okay, well, there's my worst.
Mine too.
Best might have to be The Doctor's Wife.
Best is really, really hard for me.
Uh-huh.
Basically, I would say The Doctor's Wife or any episode in the second half, because I think the second half was just so consistently good.
Yeah.
It might be The Girl Who Waited. I think The Girl Who Waited just about beats The Doctor's Wife for me.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree. And I would agree that, the second half of the season was really strong. And it's really hard to say that any one of those episodes was even remotely bad. I mean, this season has been a really good one, now that I think about it.
How do you think it stacks up to 5?
I think it was better than season 5.
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I did like a lot of episodes in Series 5, and I think part of my love of Series 5 at the time was just the fact that it was, Stephen Moffat writing most of the episodes and telling an overall story arc, and also a new Doctor, with Matt Smith, and this was all very exciting, and I was very interested in seeing just everything all different and things like that. But I think that Series 6 was better than that. And I think that I actually haven't rewatched much of Series 5, but I think if I were to go back and rewatch Series 5, I would say okay, this is good, but it's not Series 6.
Yeah, I think everything that Series 5 was, everything good about Series 5, this did better.
Yeah.
like all of the things I loved about Series 5, and I did love Series 5 a lot. I think this did better. I think the story arc was, even through its sloppiness, I think it was a better story arc. It delved deeper into all of the characters.
Right.
And the stories were, I think they were a little bit more varied. Mm-hmm. Even though they had common themes, like parenthood and there being more than one of someone.
Right.
Actually, there is one thing about... This is something I've kind of gone back and forth on, and right now I'm actually not crazy about River Song as a character.
Okay.
I think I really like the idea of the character, and I've always liked the idea of the character. But I know some people find Alex Kingston's performance really annoying. And I'm kind of in that camp right now.
Okay. I kind of see that. I can definitely see why that would be annoying. I'm not really bothered by it, but I think that it would not be hard for me to conjure reasons to dislike Alex Kingston's performance.
She just goes kind of over the top with the awe and reverence kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain, but...
No, I kind of get it, maybe.
Okay, good.
I think I understand what you're saying, but yeah.
Like, every time she's doing, like, some kind of monologue...
Right.
I roll my eyes a bit, and I'm like, yeah, okay, tone it down just a bit, talk like a human.
Yeah, I guess...
And I think the characters actually even become a little bit less interesting now that we know that...
yeah.
Literally, the thing is, now we know literally everything about her is focused on the Doctor.
True.
Which is not something we knew about her in Series 4, and it's not even something we knew about her until relatively late in this series.
Right.
That basically her whole life revolves around the Doctor, and she was born to kill the Doctor, and then she went into archaeology to find the Doctor, and then eventually she dies, and the Doctor saves her and puts her in this weird afterlife thing. Previously we'd kind of thought that she was just this adventuring archaeologist who occasionally meets up with the Doctor, and they have a profound effect on one another. But there, like, literally isn't anything that she cares about other than the Doctor. Even her parents, it's just all about the Doctor for her.
When you describe her that way, it actually makes her seem less interesting, just describing her that way. That previously she seemed like she was, this isn't really what I want to say, but like she was her own person, and she had her own goals and ambitions, and she just happened to meet the Doctor and, I guess, fall in love or whatever. And the thought of her sort of just being shaped into this weapon that was to destroy the Doctor, it's kind of less, even though it sounds kind of crazier and sort of more interesting, it's actually kind of less interesting to me.
It is kind of both, because it's an interesting idea, but it doesn't make for a very well-rounded character.
Right.
Like, I think you can look at pretty much any companion, and especially like any of the new series companions, mostly you'll see one of the great things about Rose was that it sort of brought into the series the idea that these companions had a life outside the TARDIS,
right?
And that, like, Rose had a family, had a boyfriend, and even though the Doctor clearly had this incredible effect on her life, he wasn't the only thing about her life that was at all interesting,
right? And
then River just is all about the Doctor,
right?
So.
Yeah,
but yeah, I do find the relationship between River and the Doctor, even while I find her character annoying sometimes, I do find that interesting, and I don't know, I feel like I've enjoyed watching it. So
yeah, no, and as have I.
I think that mostly covers it.
Yeah.
The last thing I kind of want to talk about is Jenny ever coming back?
I had hopes. I really had hopes at the end of Series 5 that something was going to happen, but...
I know you did. I know you had hopes.
But it's looking really bleak at this point, and I think I might have to give up on Jenny.
Yeah, I honestly think the show's moved on from that so completely.
Yeah, but then why was Stephen Moffat so insistent upon saving her?
I don't know.
Why?
It could be that he had plans and then she wasn't available.
Well, okay, fair enough. I guess that's possible. Still annoying.
It is kind of annoying.
Yeah, no, I don't think... I think we're done with Jenny.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever see her again, which is, I think I've kind of stopped caring.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of cool to think that there's this other person out there who's kind of trying to be like the Doctor, and, well, I guess is technically related to the Doctor. But, yeah, I don't really think it's going to happen. I mean, it would be cool. I mean, I don't know.
You know, actually, another thing is, I wonder if we're going to see the Master again.
Yeah.
Because I'd be interested to see Stephen Moffat's take on the Master.
True. But what... I'm trying to remember... I mean, obviously, it's Doctor Who, and they can bring back whomever they want, however they want. But what happened to him at the end of time? Didn't he... What did happen?
Well, he was sealed in the time lock with the Time Lords to be destroyed with Gallifrey.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure they could bring him back if they wanted.
Yeah, they've done it before.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm not sure if I've mentioned this before, but it seems weird to me that the Doctor and the Master always kind of meet up. Their timelines always seem to be coinciding sort of in the right order. I don't know if that is actually true, but that's what I've sort of understood.
No, I'd say it's true. I can't think of an instance that I'm aware of in the TV show, at least, where it hasn't happened like that. And it is unusual.
Right.
And doesn't make very much sense.
Well, okay. I'm not going to worry about it.
Yeah, in general, Time Lords just seem to meet each other in the correct order.
Yeah, hey, well, it certainly makes for easy story writing.
I think it was one of the reasons that Moffat was so interested in writing a character where it wouldn't be that way, because it's so odd that it usually is that way.
Yeah. I guess, yes, what spawned this thought was... I was trying to think if there was a reason why the Doctor couldn't encounter an older Master, like, you know, a Master from before the Time War.
Or any Time Lords from before the Time War.
True, right. It's like the Time War just sort of got rid of all of them.
Yeah, best not to think too hard about it.
Okay.
Okay, so Terra Nova.
Yeah, now we haven't talked about this at all, right?
Well, I think we talked about it, we sort of pre-discussed it. Maybe more than once, back when it was in development.
Yes.
And this was actually a show that was in development for a really long time, because it was originally supposed to premiere back in, like, May.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but there were issues, so they decided, well, we're just going to premiere the pilot in May, and then the rest of it will be in the fall. And then later they were like, no, we're just going to put it in the fall.
Interesting. Now, so you're up to the episode with the disease?
Yes.
So that's the one you just watched? Okay. All right, I'm mentally making myself forget everything that's happened since then.
Yeah, so like you're giving yourself that disease.
Yes, precisely. It comes in handy.
Yes.
You know, I'm enjoying Terra Nova.
I'm enjoying it more than I thought I was going to, because I'd heard some rather negative comments from television critics about the pilot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because a lot of them saw the pilot a very long time ago, back when it was still in the works and not all the special effects were done and everything, and they have continued to sort of say it's not very good. And I'm not crazy about it. I don't think it's like it's not like the highlight of my week or anything.
Right.
But I definitely think each episode I've seen has been better than the previous one.
Right. Yeah, you know, it's I feel like, you know, a lot of the shows I watch turn out to be about time travel, but I think that I think that this one's interesting. And I guess one of the things I didn't really enjoy too much about the pilot was how much I think they sort of used the daughter character, and I'm terrible with names and I don't remember her name, to sort of explain everything that was going on by making her some kind of know-it-all. And so she talked about them being in a different time stream or something. Which is interesting. But then I don't know how much we want to get into with regard to spoilers, and I'm not even sure how much of a spoiler this is. Wait a minute. Never mind.
Oh, were you about to get into something that I haven't seen yet?
Yes, I think I was. What I find partially attractive about this show is that they're sort of talking about mysteries and things like that. And I mean, it's not like mysteries like Lost mysteries, but it's I don't know, sort of talking about things that we don't really understand. There's the equations and stuff or whatever on the rocks. And we don't really know much about that. You know, there's these Sixers and things like that are causing trouble, which are not unlike the others, but at least we know more about them than we knew about the others when the others were first. Anyway, but
you're really driven to compare this to Lost, aren't you?
I am. I can't help it. It's a jungle setting, and there's. I am gonna get over Lost at some point. I really will, but I do enjoy this show though, and I mean, it's funny because this the guy, what's his name, the military guy.
The one from Avatar?
The one from Avatar. Well, it's funny because I can't help but compare his character in this show to his character in Avatar. And I like this character infinitely more than I like the character in Avatar.
I think you're supposed to hate the character in Avatar.
Well, fair enough, but it's I dislike him as a character. Like, I feel like he's just so flat.
Yeah. You're correct about that. Avatar's also not a very good movie, so...
Well, okay. Fine. Anyway.
Yeah.
We're not gonna get into that. But yeah, no, and I mean, I like his character in this. I mean, he seems kind of, there's a lot about him we don't know, but he seems like a generally good guy, I guess, I want to say.
Yeah, but maybe like a little, crazy?
Okay, a little crazy, but
I actually enjoy that.
Oh, well, yeah.
Like, when he gets the amnesia, he flashes back to a time in his life when he was a little bit more unhinged.
Yeah. Definitely a little bit more unhinged. But yeah, no, I like that. And I think it's, I think that generally, I mean, it's not a great show, but I can't really think of anything about it that I really hate.
Yeah, I don't even hate the annoying teenage son, who I was sure I was going to hate.
Right.
I think most of the characters on the show aren't really all that interesting to me.
Right.
It's not a very character-driven show, I don't think. Mm-hmm. It's much more action-driven and cool dinosaur-driven.
Right.
But I do really like the concept. I really like the sets, like the village, the Terra Nova village. Like, they all look really cool.
Uh-huh.
You can tell that, like, an incredibly large amount of money went into making that.
Right.
I think it's fun. Mm-hmm. It's adventure-y.
It's adventure-y. And, I don't think that's a bad thing to have.
I think the pilot especially has some problems in it. I'm thinking mostly of, like, the first maybe half hour of the pilot. Set in the future.
Right.
But the future actually kind of reminded me of WALL-E, which
yeah,
which I had just seen for the first time not a week prior to watching the pilot. So
no, yeah, I could definitely see that's kind of a WALL-E thing. Well, and it's even kind of a similar concept to WALL-E, except that instead of living on the axiom, they just live in the past.
Yeah. Whereas, actually in WALL-E, I don't know how much we want to discuss WALL-E, but I really liked WALL-E, by the way. I thought it was really good.
Oh, yeah.
In WALL-E, they sort of decide that in response to the fact that they've sort of screwed up their planet, they're just going to sort of retreat from the problem and learn nothing from it and sort of become more, gluttonous and, like, useless lumps. Whereas in Terra Nova, they decide that they're going to try to learn from their mistakes and build a better society.
Right.
So... Good on ya, Terra Nova future.
That's really mature of them. That's really good.
It's a much more optimistic view of the human future.
Yes.
Even though it is like a dystopian future.
Right. Not like pessimistic Pixar.
Oh, the old double P.
Yes.
But in any case, one of the problems with that, with the pilot is I have absolutely no idea why they chose to have a third child.
Yeah.
We're told that one of the reasons that they were so excited to go to Terra Nova is that they hated the idea of raising their children in this dystopian future world. So why did they have an additional child?
Right.
And when asked why he had another child, Taylor asks, the main character guy, who is played by the American Sam Tyler, asks him, why did you have a third child? And his response is, seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yeah, that doesn't really make sense at all, actually. I don't know, maybe they were just really banking on getting into Terra Nova. Maybe they're just like, let's have a bunch of kids, and maybe someday we'll be able to sneak them all through the portal to go back in time.
Yeah, maybe.
Seems like a weird thing to bet on, but maybe that's the thing. I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't make sense at all.
I don't know. It sort of soured me on the show at first. I was like, yeah, I really don't think that makes any sense. so nothing any of these characters are doing makes any sense to me.
Right.
And especially, like, they just rush and get them very quickly back into the past. Like, they're, like, flashing forward 2 years later, and it's just, like, kind of all over the place. I'm actually kind of interested in the future and want to know a little bit more about it.
Yeah, I mean, that is something that we're really not told a lot about, but you know, it seems to be playing a continual role. I think that, you know, and I guess I wasn't clear on this with the pilot, but apparently they can communicate back to the future. I guess what they say is that it's a one-way trip. They never say it's a one-way communication. I don't know.
I think they say in the pilot that during the pilgrimages they have the ability to communicate back, and so that's when they make their requests for supplies and for personnel and stuff like that. And again, they might go more into this in the episode that you've seen and I haven't. They can apparently communicate even when the pilgrimage is not happening.
Right. Yeah, sure. I guess I want to understand better the mechanics of the time travel that they use, but I mean, you know, I guess, once again, it's hard to keep all these different methods of time travel straight in my head, whether it's the Fringe time travel, or the Doctor Who time travel, or now the Terra Nova time travel. That sounds catchy.
It doesn't even seem consistent.
No, it doesn't.
Aren't we told that Taylor was the first person through the portal?
Right.
And then he was there for hundreds of days?
Yes.
And then the other people came through, even though for them it had only been a minute.
Right.
We never get any indication, again, that the portal works like that.
Yeah, and yeah, I want to know, I'm trying to remember, what pilgrimage was this?
The one they came in on?
Yeah.
The 10th.
The 10th. Okay. Yeah, I guess I want to know, is this, you know, was that just like a glitch at the very first pilgrimage or whatever, where, like, they didn't have the I don't know, some sort of portal thingy signal, whatever, done correctly. I don't even know. And they've refined it so that now it's kind of a one-to-one where, like, 10 years pass in the future and then 10 years pass in the past, and then they have another pilgrimage. And, like, how far are these pilgrimages spanned out? Because, I mean, we're talking about, certainly, Taylor's kind of old, and I guess I don't know. So, like, I mean, he's been there for years, right? I mean, they've all, like, Terra Nova's, like, been around for,
I think 7 years.
7 years? Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
So they do a pilgrimage roughly every, 9 months or something? I don't know.
Maybe.
But yeah, okay. So I guess I just want to know more about the logistics of Terra Nova.
I guess that would probably be kind of interesting. One thing is, are we supposed to accept that it's a separate time stream? Because, I mean, the Sixers seem to say something like, the real reason Terra Nova was established is because if you control the past, you control the future.
Oh, okay. See, I was going to say that, but I thought that was in the most recent episode, and I didn't want to. But okay.
That's at the end of the pilot.
Oh. Well, anyway, yeah, I know. Yeah, well, maybe it was reiterated in this most recent episode. Maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Maybe.
I'm going to say that to myself feel better. Yeah, so, I mean, I guess it could be that they're not in a real separate time stream. But then again, if that were true, then that would mean that they are affecting the future.
Yeah.
Or it's... Yeah, what kind of time travel are they using? Like, are they using the time travel where, like, it always happened that way, and you can try and change the past, only it's going to turn out exactly how... Like,
You know the probe from the first episode?
Yeah.
That would seem to imply... Well, you know, it's this really, you know, not very good logic that, they sent the probe back through the portal, and then they never found it. So the fact that they never found it means that it's not a self-consistent loop. Like, I mean, maybe they just didn't find it.
Right. Right.
Maybe they just didn't look hard enough.
Yeah, you know, stuff happens. You know, 85 million years of wear and tear. I mean, like, come on. Maybe the thing just ran out of batteries.
True.
Like, I assume it was sending out a signal or something. So, like a little GPS find me signal. Actually, you know, that would be really interesting is if we find out in a later episode that they destroy the probe.
I would not be surprised if that happened, actually.
That would be really cool.
Yeah, and you know, if they're meant to imply that by coming back in time they have created a new timeline, then wouldn't it be the case that every time a person comes through the portal, it creates a new timeline?
Ooh, yeah.
And so that there are thousands of timelines where one person comes through the portal and then the next one just never comes through.
Yeah, wow.
I don't think the show wants us to think about that, though.
They probably don't. I think they want to just draw our attention to the big, scary dinosaurs.
Yeah, and they are big.
Oh, they are. And scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that some of these things might be addressed, but probably most of them won't. And I'm kind of okay with that. I am interested to see where the show goes.
Yeah, and I think it's been a rating success, more or less.
Really?
Yeah, it's stayed consistent, at least.
Well, that's good.
It's a very expensive show to make, so they probably were hoping for more. It was something like 9 million, and then it dropped to like 8 million, and then it dropped to 7 million, but then it went back up to 8 million. So it seems to be doing fairly well.
Well, that's good. I'm trying to think of other... Once again, I'm trying to think of it in terms of Lost. Lost started off with something like, what? It was in like the teens for millions, right? When the pilot aired.
I think so, yeah. But Lost was, well, first of all, Lost wasn't explicitly a sci-fi show.
True.
Especially not at the beginning. And, viewing figures on television are down across the board even since then, even though that wasn't a long time ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, now that I'm thinking about it, this is going to sound weird, but... I almost want to compare it to Flash Forward. And how did Flash Forward... Because I know Flash Forward got canceled after the first season. And I was interested in watching it at first. And then I lost interest, and I guess so did The Nation. Because I seem to recall Flash Forward's numbers suddenly dropping.
According to Wikipedia, Flash Forward started with 12.4, and then went down to 10.7, then 9.0, and then they hovered around the 8 to 9, and then they gradually dropped. Yeah, and then by the end, they sort of stabilized around 5 million. And now I'm looking at the event.
The event. Oh, yeah, what happened to the event? Did that get canceled?
Oh, of course that got canceled.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it started at 10.8, and then that dropped really quickly.
You know, I think I still have on my DVR all the event episodes.
Don't watch them. I mean, it dropped more quickly, but then it stabilized also around the 5 million range.
Oh.
So it stabilized at around the same place, but it was a quicker drop-off. This is really fun looking at these numbers. Oh, yeah, Lost started at 18.6.
Oh, wow.
And that's incredible. And, by the end of the season, it had rose to 20.
Really?
Yeah, and
wow.
It throughout season 2, it was consistently between 15 and 20.
Huh.
And then it was in season 3 that it started to drop off, and then by the end it was at about somewhere around 10.
Interesting.
So yeah, now that I think of it, Terra Nova isn't even doing as good as Lost was doing in its final season.
Huh. That's interesting.
But I think it's doing better than other shows on Fox, so...
Well, yeah, how's Fringe doing?
I don't think it really matters how Fringe is doing, because I don't think it's getting another season anyway.
No, probably not. I mean, I don't know how much we want to talk about Fringe, but this season of Fringe feels to me like a final season. I feel like it's been written that way.
I would be fine with actually transitioning to talk a little bit about Fringe.
Sure, I'm not completely caught up.
Oh, you're not?
The last one I saw was The Moldy Kid.
The Moldy Kid.
I don't know how else to describe it.
Maybe we should revisit that at another time then. But looking at Wikipedia, it looks like it's kind of holding steady around the range of 3 million.
Okay.
Which is probably not enough to get it renewed, and I don't think it's going to gain viewers at this point.
But I do think that, from what I've seen, it feels like a final season to me.
Yeah, it probably could be. I'm sure that if they wanted to continue, then and they were allowed to continue, then I'm sure they'd think of something.
Oh, well, yeah.
Because I don't think Fringe is. I don't think it really had a specific end game ever. I think it just sort of goes and goes.
Right.
I think they sort of make it up as they go.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like with Peter being, erased from the universe, that feels like a big thing to me, and like bringing him back will be a big thing. But, I could see that if Fringe suddenly became hugely popular and they wanted to keep it going, I could see that eventually being a thing where, Olivia looks back and laughs and is like, "Hey, Peter, you remember that time you were erased from the universe? Yeah, that was fun." and they've had several seasons since and blah, 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 blah. But, I don't know.
Well, I think one thing about Fringe, and I guess we're talking about it now, so we might as well include this in the podcast without going into detail about the most recent episode,
right.
is the there was a definite like storyline that was running through Fringe where it was about a war against this other universe.
Right.
And I have a feeling that when they were writing that storyline, they were like, okay, this is what our show is about. Mm-hmm. And so we're working towards an end of that story. But then they got to the end and they're like, well, we get to still exist as a show. So what do we do? So they came up with a new story idea, right. which is fine as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. And I mean, I do think that particularly with the episode with the psychopath on one side and the forensics professor on the other side, I thought that was a very interesting way to play with that.
I think so too, and
I'd like to see more of that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how long they could sustain that sort of thing as a premise for a show.
It reminded me of Awake, which is a show that hasn't premiered yet, but it's upcoming.
Okay.
I think we've talked about it. It's a show about a guy who is living in sort of two universes.
Oh, right.
He's in a car crash with his wife and son, and in one universe his son died, and in the other universe his wife died.
Yes.
And he solves crimes using clues from one universe to apply to another.
Yes.
Yeah, so Fringe, that episode of Fringe in particular kind of reminded me of that, and I think that's an interesting way to use the parallel universes concept in what's really just a standalone episode.
Yeah. I do like how they did that, and I would like to see that done again, but I don't know if that's what I don't know how well that could work as a premise.
Yeah, obviously I don't want to see like that exact same thing over and over again. But
yeah, that would get really boring. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I could see a lot of fun things done with, being able to cross over to a parallel universe willy-nilly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Fringe is probably the best sci-fi show on American TV at the moment. And I don't think Terra Nova has wrestled that title away from it at all.
No. I can't really think of any other sci-fi show that's even on. I mean, I'm sure there are others, and I just don't watch them, but I can't think of...
There's an entire channel devoted to it.
Oh, is there?
It's called Siffy.
Wow, yeah. How about that? Yeah, actually, now that I think about it, a lot of sci-fi shows, obviously, a lot of sci-fi shows have been shown on Sci-Fi. Has like a show like Fringe ever appeared on Sci-Fi?
Well, there's never been a show quite like Fringe. I don't really know what you're asking.
Because they show reruns of other shows.
Oh, I thought you meant like, has there ever been a sci-fi show that is similar to Fringe?
No.
Yeah, I don't know. I do not know. That probably, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Who knows?
Well, it's not even a very interesting thing I don't even know why I asked it.
Well, it is kind of cool that you have these cable channels where shows like Firefly can live on afterwards. Because I know they show reruns of Firefly, and there are still people who have never seen Firefly, and it's cool to think that they might. I know they show reruns of some of the Star Trek shows as well.
Oh right, yeah, and actually, strangely, BBC America is showing reruns of Battlestar Galactica, which was a cable show to begin with. So,
and Star Trek too. They're showing Star Trek.
Right. Yeah. Huh. But yeah, no, it's interesting. I'd like to see more new shows on cable channels, but
Sci-Fi has their shows.
True, they do.
I don't watch any of them at the moment, though.
Nor I.
I heard there was a good one. Alphas, maybe it's called.
Oh, I've heard of that.
I think that's their new show. I've heard good things about.
I've heard good things about Warehouse 13.
I watched the first season of that.
Uh-huh.
Maybe I'll get around to watching the second season eventually. It was all right.
Okay.
I thought it was a little too silly for me.
Oh, really?
Yep.
But yeah, no. When's Blood and Chrome happening?
I just thought of that, yeah. I'm looking at the thing at the Wikipedia page. There's no date attached to it yet. Because we've been talking about that for a long time.
Yeah. Since
Caprica was still on the air.
True, yeah. Maybe someday.
And maybe someday I'll watch Battlestar Galactica.
Well, I'm not going to say you have to watch it, and I don't think I ever have, so I think I'm good.
And if you were to say that, it probably wouldn't really bind me in any meaningful way.
Well, okay. Then I won't bother.
I have watched the entire first season and the last 8 minutes of the finale.
So basically everything in between is kind of just this, sort of meandering line towards Earth. Well, what does happen in the last 8 minutes? Maybe you don't need to wonder about how they get there.
Well, it's kind of a spoiler, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, all I know is that they're, I guess, like the spaceship crashes or something on prehistoric Earth. Also, Bob Dylan is there.
Wait, what?
Bob Dylan shows up in Battlestar Galactica, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Isn't Bob Dylan there?
Well, yeah, sure.
This is the end of this episode of the Cloister Room, which you have been listening to, or rather, to which you have been listening. To find out more about the show and how you can contact us, you can go to thecloisterroom.com. So, until next week, I'm Tom Dickinson.
And I'm Louis Midas.
Goodbye.
Later.